Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another autism vlog. Well, it's late in the evening and Stephen got tired, so he's taking a nap. So I'm going to sneak on in here and try to talk to your parents about something that's going to be very near and dear to your heart, the infamous meltdown. Now, those of our children that are on the spectrum will have different meltdowns, and a meltdown is a different thing to a different child. So what is a meltdown? A meltdown is any type of a behavior, whether it is self-destructive, whether it is obstructing a path, whether it is self-injurious, or just maybe even just shutting down eternally. So each child's going to be different. So some children, they may start screaming at the top of their lungs. That's a meltdown. Others may start gouging their eyes, and that's a real scary one, or head banging, okay? Others may basically, like I used to tell my sons, to go tilt. So no matter anything you say to them, they are now shut down. So that's a meltdown. Of course, the more quieter ones are a little bit easier to handle. The louder ones can get very embarrassing, and I tell you, they never happen in the most convenient places. It could be in the middle of a store, it could be on school grounds, it could be just in the middle of church services. You just never know when it's going to hit. So we want to talk about what are some of the things that could possibly trigger these meltdowns. Well, again, for each child it's going to be different. So parent, you know your son or daughter, and you know what's going to upset them. For example, with Stephen, a trigger for him that it took us a bit to figure out was the color yellow. Stephen absolutely loved the color yellow. And we would go to a grocery store, and if he saw something that was yellow, all he really needed was to reach out, touch it, hold it in his hand, look at it, examine it. He didn't even need to bring it home. He could put it back on the shelf and be perfectly happy. But if I didn't catch that he'd seen something yellow, his meltdown would start by crying. He would be banging in the chair. Now, he wasn't a headbanger, thank God, but then he would go into this cry that was the most pitiful but loud cry that everybody would hear. And if he was away from, say, the cart where he was walking, he would get on the floor and it would be a full-blown kicking and screaming and yelling, and that is so embarrassing and it's so hard to deal with. That's one type of meltdown. We had another young man that I was helping in the scouting world. His meltdowns were a little bit more violent than that. He would actually go into a corner and he'd start throwing tables, or he'd kick walls, and he would scream on the top of his lungs. And again, very, very embarrassing, very difficult, but we had to, in both those instances, watch for self-injurious behaviors, because in that instance, the young man would actually bang his head on the wall. So we're talking about self-injury behaviors. Other meltdowns that I've witnessed over the years is young men that, you know, they get into a situation and they can't handle it and they go. And no matter what you did, they're not coming back from it. Or they may bite themselves, or they may start attacking others. So the meltdowns are different. The triggers are different. Again, I said for Stephen, the trigger might have been the color yellow. I've dealt with another young man. The trigger was if it was flashing lights in the room, he couldn't handle it, okay? It may be the food looks different or something tastes different. Parents, you know your son or daughter's triggers. Now here's the trick. You need to make sure that the people that are going to be around your child knows what those triggers are, and they can anticipate them, so that with Stephen in school, his teachers all knew Stephen really liked yellow, and if you had anything yellow in the classroom, you needed to give him the opportunity to explore whatever that object was, and once he did it once, he was fine. Another young man needed to know that he felt safe. He needed to understand that, you know what, Jacob, I understand that the lights in this room are really bright and it's really bothering you. How about we let you sit in the classroom wearing sunglasses? So you know some of the things that you can do. The other thing that you need to do with these triggers is you need to know that if you miss the first trigger or the anticipatory trigger, oh, there's something yellow over there. Then you need to know, okay, if I miss it, what's the first behavior? So for Stephen, oftentimes that was seeing him do something like this, called flapping. Okay, that was always my first sign. Okay, something's upsetting him, and I need to look around quickly and try and figure out what has got him so upset. Stephen's second trigger, or symptom rather, was he's been doing this and you've not picked it up, and now he's going to start screaming and yelling. Okay? Now your emotions were all spiked up and you're like, okay, I got to figure this out because I'm in the middle of the grocery store. I can't have this. You know, I don't want to grab him and run out the grocery store without my groceries, but I have to do something. Then you need to know what is the repair to the meltdown. This is what a lot of teachers, psychiatrists, psychologists, Boy Scout leaders, Girl Scout leaders can help you with, where they need to work with you and say, okay, so we missed the triggers, we're in a full-blown meltdown, what is it that's going to work for your child? Now, again, I'm going to tell you about Stephen. For Stephen, the answer was never, never put your hands on him. Never, never put your arms around him, because all that did was make it even worse. So now I'm out of control, and now this big person is on top of me. That never worked. What worked for Stephen was I would start whispering to him towards his ear in a lower voice, Stephen, it's okay. Mom is here. We're going to take care of this. Come on, buddy. Work with me here. Come on over to Mom. Let's go do something. Let's go into the other room and let's go play with your Legos, or let's go do something else. And for him, it would take a couple of minutes, but eventually he would calm down, because when he was yelling, he wasn't hearing what I was saying, but he saw my mouth moving and he wanted to know what it was. So he would calm down. I had another young man who would always seem to find himself in a corner. And, you know, when they're out of control like that, they are very frightened. They're very frightened not only of whatever in the environment is stimulating, they're frightened of their own response and what's going to happen. And so with that young man, what I would do is he would back himself into a corner, and all I would do is stand in front of him and put my arms up around, so that this way I was actually blocking his view. He couldn't see past me to see what was out there that was upsetting him. And with him, again, I would use my voice, and it was almost like a mantra. Jacob, it's okay. I'm going to keep you safe. No one's going to hurt you. You're going to be fine. Jacob, it's going to be okay. You're going to be safe. I'm not going to let you get hurt. And eventually, just the repetition on the monotone would bring him back, help him calm down. And then once he was down, I'd say, okay, are you okay? And do you want me to let you loose? Now, were the times he'd say to me, no, stay here. And then there'd be other times he'd say, yeah, I'm okay, let me out. Okay? So you have to work with your child and find out, number one, what started it. Number two, at what level have we escalated to? And number three, what is it that that child needs to help him? Now, my other son, Thomas, when he got into a full-blown meltdown, oh my God, that child, he was screaming in California and you heard it in New York, okay? But for Thomas, the sound of my voice, and I could wrap my arms around him, would help settle him down. He would have meltdowns in school, and all the school had to do is get me on the phone. And he could be screaming and kicking, and I'd say, Thomas, Thomas, Thomas. And for him, that was what he needed. So a meltdown is an emotionally charged event for the child that's engaged. It's an emotionally charged event for the parent that's trying desperately to help their child, because none of us want to see this. And it's emotionally charged for the people in the environment. And another last quick hint, folks. Please remember something. Don't worry about what other people think about what your child is going through and how you're handling it. At the end of the day, they're not bringing your child home. They're not going to help you. As a very, very wise cashier that discovered me when I was trying to deal with Thomas said to me, don't worry about it. They're not paying the bills. If they start paying the bills, then they have something to say. I wish all of you the best of luck. This is a really hard topic. And you know, if you like what we're saying here, you can like, share, and I'm sure Stephen is going to come back and say something else, because you know he'll edit this. Oh, see? He woke up. Okay, Stephen.
Well, it was kind of hard for me to take a nap without you yapping.
Well, you know what, Stephen? It was a very important topic that these people need to know about. And
well, there's no denying that.
So if they have questions, Stephen, can they send a question to you so that we can answer it at a later point in time?
Yeah, I was about to mention that. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if
if you want, why don't you just leave a question down below on what topic you want me to cover, cover for next week. Also, last week we just officially published a Patreon page for the YouTube channel, so feel free to check out the Patreon page, become a patron, because that's awesome. And, yeah, that's pretty much it.
You did a great job, Stephen.
Thank you, Mommy.
You gotta love them. Bye, guys.
My mind feels so blank.